In this video, I discussed the reason why Ethereum crashes after the ETF went live. It's a massive event, and since then the price have started to cascade downwards as we are down more than 10%. Why is this happening and will this continue? Everything in one video for you on your journey towards financial freedom. So, the Ethereum ETF went live after 2 months of preparation for the S1 files to be approved. There are two stages of an ETF approval, which is the 19B4 files, which is technically the ETF itself. That was approved in May, and that was the actual low of ETH against Bitcoin at that moment in time, as we can see on the chart. Since then, we've had a rally of 25 to 30% on the price action of ETH, and the S1 files, which are the listing files, those took a little bit more time than we all wanted it to be, but it was approved on Monday. So on Tuesday this week, the trading started to take place for the Ethereum ETF. However, there's not the actual price action that we are expecting. But is that actually the case? I think it is actually what we should have been expecting, and I'll discuss that later in this video. The interesting part is that there's a lot of volume on the Ethereum ETF compared to the Bitcoin ETF. You should realize that approximately 25% or 10 to 25% of the Bitcoin ETF should be expected at this point. So if anything is higher than that, then it's a massive win for the Ethereum ETF itself. The trading volume on the first 3 days is very positive. We are getting close towards 700 million towards a billion on a day, which is on the first day we had 1.1 billion compared to Bitcoin's ETF of 4.6 billion. Now, the next 2 days we are quite equal to Bitcoin, or getting towards 70 to 80% of the volumes, which is really good. However, there are some bad things taking place, which is the fact that we see a negative outflow standing on the chart, as you can see, which is due to the fact that there is a grayscale trust that is opened up for the people that were invested into it. So due to the fact that grayscale is transitioning the trust automatically towards an ETF, it means that all the participants that were in that actual vehicle are able to get out and swap it to something else or just sell their position. And then if you do some math, you can see that based on the data of the past few days, that there is net outflow and that people are selling their positions in ETH on the open markets, which means that currently we do have an outflow. But if we completely erase the Grayscale Trust's outflow, we would have been having a constant and consistent inflow of between 50 to 100 million for the actual ETF. I'm sure about that. So we need to be looking at a case where we're going to be having the outflow to stagnate, and that is the moment where Ethereum starts to reverse. Now, the Ethereum ETF, as I mentioned, has the same impact as the Bitcoin ETF. So the Ethereum ETF in itself is, the market cap for ETH is 25% of the market cap of Bitcoin. So you can't expect the Ethereum ETF to do the same as the Bitcoin ETF. On the first day for Bitcoin, you've had 4.6 billion in volume. For Ethereum, it was 1.1. Today's after, we can see that we've had a flow of close towards the Bitcoin ETF as well. So it's even more positive. And also, there's a way larger impact on both sides of trading for ETH, which means that the amount of ETH that has been issued during this year is approximately 160 million. And we know that it might even become deflationary when it comes to ETH, but there is a very tiny supply being added on ETH on a yearly basis, where the supply for Bitcoin is significantly larger. Approximately 7 billion has been created there this year. The inflow of the Bitcoin ETF is approximately 12 to 15 billion. But for ETH, it's around 150 million. The first day had an inflow of 120 million, which means that the inflow, the demand, is close to a whole year of supply for ETH. if we turn that around, that if the outflow on a specific day is 200 million netto, then it means that that is going to impact the price substantially. And we can see that having a drop of approximately 8% on a day is equivalent to that amount of money. So there's a large impact going to come, and the ETH against Bitcoin price action has significantly dropped since the previous ETF approval, which has been causing correction of 10%. And we all need to wait until the Grayscale trust is going to stagnate, or when the money is going to be out there already. If we see that continuing to fall, it's going to be great. And at this point, around 10% has already been sold. It's a question whether the rest of these participants of that particular trust are going to sell it entirely, or whether they continue to hold. I suspect that at least half of them are going to hold it, which means that we still need around 5 to 8 days to get through, and then we are done with this entire saga. This is very comparable to what Bitcoin had after its listing. Bitcoin started trading on the 11th of January, and that was the short-term peak of that moment, because after that moment the price fell by 20%. But if we look at the flows, then we can see that in the first part in January, the flows were barely positive, as we had a massive amount of Grayscale outflow taking place that transitioned towards other ETFs, but also due to the fact that people were just simply taking profits on their position in Grayscale or want to reallocate towards different assets. So in that aspect, the Ethereum price action is comparable. We are currently down approximately 15% as well, where Bitcoin dropped 20%. And it's very likely to expect that the impact on the Ethereum ETF is bigger due to the supply shocks that are taking place. So we could be seeing a further correction. We could be seeing an even bigger return, because if we revert back towards Bitcoin, the price action after it bottomed out and the Grayscale outflow stagnated and more inflow came in, we saw a double on the price of Bitcoin. We ran from 38k to 73k in a matter of 2 to 3 months, which shows the amount of impact it had on Bitcoin. Now, if we look at the current market circumstances, it's not the best nature, as currently also gold has been correcting, and also Nasdaq has been seeing its worst daily close in 2 years' time, which means that there's a lot of social unrest, global uncertainty, and all those things taking place, which also has been having an impact on the markets. Now, what is my expectation when it comes to the Ethereum ETF? There are two scenarios. The first one is we copycat Bitcoin and we get a lower low. In that regard, I would say an area of 2.5 to 2.8k is definitely where we are going to look for when it comes to ETH. We might also be looking at a new lower low for ETH against Bitcoin, but that is technically where I'm going to expect as a first scenario. The second scenario I highlighted on Twitter earlier, where we corrected towards 3000 to 3.1, create a higher low and reverse back up, which is needed to be fueled by a lower outflow on Grayscale or a higher inflow on the Ethereum ETF itself. And then it's also time for the altcoins to start doing well. And then I expect to see altcoins in the ETH ecosystem to start thriving. And I give you one altcoin here, that is Omni Network, which is a restaking model that has been getting a heavy correction, but it's a Binance listing. It doesn't have unlocks until next year, where I think that if ETH is going to do the actual impact, and my expectation is that if the flow is copycatting Bitcoin, we're going to see ETH rallying towards $6,000 to $7,500. I think Omni is going to provide a 4x until then. So my portfolio is getting hammered these days. I'm down substantially. I know that drill, but I'm going to continue holding here. And I think that this is just a temporary correction where the outflow is impacting it heavily. I'll see you again on Sunday. Make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Ciao.